Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Moji. This is a show where we get to express ourselves and teach, learn from one another. And with me today, I have a dear friend, and his name is, we call him Muyiwa Eniola. What's that name they call you in command? Anyway, you tell us your name later.
Yep.
So I have with me a friend of mine, and he'll be talking to us more about his journey so far. I believe today we're going to be blessed, inspired, and actually motivated by his story. So welcome, Muyiwa. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Your name, where you live.
Okay, thank you.
And what you do.
Yes. Once again, thank you for having me on. I think this is a great forum to bring all of us together. I've watched a couple of your previous episodes, and I enjoyed them and learned a lot from them. My name is Muyiwa, and I am also a commando. I finished with a set of 88, even though I started in 82. I finished with 88, and I currently live in the United States of America, specifically in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The area which I live in is typically considered a flyover country because it's in the middle of the country, the Midwest they call it. So, and I am an electrical engineer. I work for Collins Aerospace, designing electronics that goes into airplanes, more specifically power supplies. So when you're in a plane watching your DVDs, or the lights that come on, or the electronics that your pilots use to fly the airplane, I am involved with things like that.
Wonderful. So you said you live in the United States.
Right.
We'd like to know, we all went to command and we know a bit about you, but after command, what has happened so far? I mean, at this time, we're talking about your academic background.
Right. Yeah, we all went to command, and none of you knew me because I was very troublesome, and I didn't get close to quite a lot of people because of that. But I am glad that we went together, we finished at the same time, and I consider each and every one of us our siblings. Well, my journey so far, so I finished in 1988. I was an art student. Once I finished WAEC, about a week after WAEC, my dad called me into his room with his back turned to me, and he said, well, I don't think you're going to pass. So I think you should just go to the US and start over, go to high school all over. But God so good, the training that I got in command had ruggedized me, so no one could tell me. First of all, I knew what I had written in WAEC, but because, as you all know, I repeated from 3, and my dad just viewed me as a horrible student, and that was fine. He parented me to the best of his abilities at the time. But God so good that I had enough confidence in myself not to even consider what he said. I mean, when he said that, I just kind of looked at him. He didn't see me because he had his back turned. And I just thought, I said, when my WAEC result comes, you will see. I didn't say anything, so I just left the room. So I left for the US in late February of 1989. And so I wasn't even 17 yet when my parents dumped me in the US. I turned 17 in August and I arrived in March. So thankfully, command had prepared me to be alone. It was hard, but command had organized me to the point that I was able to push through. I mean, but coming to the US, even when we were in command, even though I was an art student, I wanted to do science, even though I wasn't a good student, but I was more intrigued by science. And my dad made sure, when I filled out my form at home, I filled out art just to please him. But he knew that I was going to change it when I go to school. So Mr. Kayode, after we submitted it, all our forms or whatever it was to fill out, Mr. Kayode went and pulled it, made me scratch everything, and then put all the art classes. But even while we were in school, I realized that, eventually I became a good student in Form 4, but I realized that I didn't like reading. And even though I wasn't good in math, but I was intrigued by it. Even though I wasn't good in physics and chemistry, I was intrigued by it. And not many people remember this. I was the best biology student in art class, all from Form 3 even though we weren't art science, but all the way from Form 3 to Form 5, I was always the highest. I always got the highest scores in biology. In our Greek, I went back and forth, but I did really well there too. And then in history, I was considered the best student in history, but it took a lot of effort to, I just didn't like reading. I was more intrigued by just calculations and stuff like that. So when I got to the US, I applied to go to Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, and I scored high on the placement exam. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, so I have enough of a foundation to maybe do well in science. So I decided to go into science, and but my dad said no, go into real estate management. I tried that, I failed. And I said go into accounting. I tried that, I failed. So it wasn't until I decided to just try engineering, and the way I got introduced to engineering or got pushed into that field was kind of funny. I don't know if you remember, in the middle 90s, like 93, 94 was when computers started getting cheap, where people could couple them together and build their own system. So I was in my room one day, I hadn't been in school like a year, and I was just coupling together a 386 machine. And one of my cousin's friends just looked people and he said, since you like putting computers together, why don't you go to technical school and learn how to build computers? And I thank God for insights, because once he said that, I just said to myself, computers compare. I said, let me go, even go and try electrical engineering. So that was how I went. I signed up, and from day one, things just came to me easy. I mean, I was just, even though I struggled in math because they placed me high, they put me in calculus because of my placement scores. But since I didn't have the foundation, the secondary school foundation, I struggled. So they dropped me down to pre-calculus. I still didn't have the requisite foundation, so they dropped me down to algebra. That was when I started doing really well, and then things just started coming to me. And I used to always wonder, even when I was taking chemistry, I used to always wonder, okay, what was so hard about this? But then I realized that I just wasn't mentally and emotionally prepared to be in command at that time. I should have probably come in, even though I should have probably come in with maybe 89 or 90 set, in my own humble opinion. That was how immature I was, in my own estimation. Anyway, so I went to engineering school. I really enjoyed it. I mean, every new semester, the classes that came forth, I would find myself looking forward to them, doing my assignments without being prodded and getting my labs done. I really enjoyed it. And then right after engineering school, I went to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore for my master's degree. As you all know, Hopkins is a very expensive school, but what happened was the company I was working for sent me back to go and get my master's, because in the engineering field, it's very competitive, and companies try to make sure that all of the employees are stellar, as in they have high degrees and the wherewithal and the knowledge to perform the tasks at hand. So that's how I became an engineer, and I've been doing that for about 22 years now.
Wow. Okay, listening to you, and I know you're also a parent, I'm thinking, so from what you learned about how, because you said your dad wanted you to do estate management, he wanted you to do some other things out of his own good heart, and but would you, looking back now, what did you learn from that experience that you are now using as a parent?
Well, so with my first child, I made a mistake, but I corrected it quickly. The day she went to go sign up for classes, I drove her to the school and said, you will do biochemistry. I want you to go into medicine. But good for her. After I left, she just changed it back to whatever she wanted to do. We found out 3 years later. And I didn't say anything because I just realized that, it's her life and I can't really control what she wants to do. But for me, for example, with my son especially, I never say bad things to him. I just tell him, if he does something smart, I'll say, wow, that was smart. I don't think I could have done that when I was your age. And it's quite true, actually. It's completely different for me. With my daughters, I was a little bit more harsh with them because I was a young parent when they were teenagers. And being in the US, you know how it goes in the US, where we blacks want to make sure our children are like really, really well polished because of the kind of environment that we're in. So I push them, like all my children are good in math and in English grammar. And I credit myself, something I learned from my father was, when I was in primary school, my father used to show up to school every day to see what we were doing, partly because I was naughty and partly because he was invested in what we were doing. And in command, he used to have people come watch me. So I kind of did the same thing, and I put in the requisite amount of work to get them through school. And I have 3 of them in college now. 4th one will be joining them next year. My oldest should be getting done here shortly, actually. So I think my dad just taught me just being how to be invested in your children's overall well-being. Even though his methods and the manner in which he carried it out, I don't agree with. Like flogging me when I would fail. The flogging didn't work. I mean, I still went to school and played. I wasn't ready to be in command. So all the flogging was just a waste of time. You know, it wasn't until from 4 that I began to mature, and then I decided, okay, this education is my own. And I began to take pride in doing well and taking ownership of stuff. So just you have to let children be who they are. We can't all be doctors or lawyers. And in an environment like the US, where even someone that is a mechanic can be a millionaire, that's wanting your children to be a lawyer, a doctor, doesn't really follow here.
At all.
Even in Nigeria anymore, really. So you just have to allow people to be who they are so that if you enjoy what you're doing, then you'll be good at it. So.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, you told us about, you went to school, you did engineering, and then, so you said a few things about what you do. Can you tell us more about, the kind of things you couple together? I think, as I always say, that's, not everybody can do that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a superpower. So tell us, what are some of the things you do?
Okay, so I am an RF, radio frequency engineer by training. So getting signals from one point to another and making sure they travel efficiently through the air is what I was trained as. But now I do power supplies because I realize after a while that I really don't enjoy RF. I enjoy doing power supplies. So, anything that has to do with power, I can do really, and like more recently, I got into solar, because we build inverters that go into airplanes. Airplanes have generators tied to their engine, right? Just like your house generator. As the engine of the airplane is spinning, it's also generating power because they have alternators hooked up. Yeah. And it's AC power, and that AC power needs to be converted to DC power, which then lights your DVD player and some of the controls for the navigation and stuff like that. So as a result of that, I understand power. And in recent times, I've gotten into just playing with solar energy as a hobby. And as a result of that, I've helped people design systems. So what I really love to do is, have people come to me and say, hey, I want to install solar in my house. And I have certain requirements, and then I will take a look at those requirements, and then I design a system for them. And then if they want me, I can help them figure out, find a person to do the actual installation. I can help you procure the equipment that you need, and then find an installer. So what makes me different from what typically obtains in Nigeria is that I am actually an electrical engineer. So I understand how power flows from one medium to another. For example, the reason why people have, what do they call those things? Stabilizers in their homes is so that the NEPA power won't blow up the equipment, right? But what people don't realize that is, if you gain something, you have to lose something, That's where if you have a force here, an equal and opposite force applies, right? So when you protect your equipment in the house, that's one reason why transformers blow. Because some of the things that should be blowing up your own equipment, your stabilizer is sending it back.
Okay.
To the transformer. And then if you have enough people sending garbage back to the transformer, it will blow. Basically, the power that comes from the pole to the transformer steps it down, sends it to your house. But a part of that is noise. It's like dirty power that you don't need. And ideally, under normal circumstances, if you don't have a stabilizer, that power goes into your equipment and blows your equipment up. But once you stabilize it here, then what's going on here? That stuff has to go somewhere. So it goes back to the transformer. The transformer has to dissipate it, and then eventually it blows. So
Okay.
where I come in is I educate people. Okay, like if I design a solar system for you, for example, I educate you on the things that you should and should not do. For example, if you're on an inverter, you should not be using a stabilizer, because the inverter itself is doing the stabilizing for you. So if you now have a stabilizer and a stabilizer, then in between the stabilizer and the stabilizer, what happens? So that's how equipment gets done. So that's where I come in. I design systems.
Okay, so sorry, can I echo that? So
Okay.
if you are using inverters, then you don't need stabilizers in the house.
No, the only time you should have a stabilizer is when you're on NEPA, really.
When you're on NEPA.
When you're on NEPA. You know, there are just some technical things that happen. There's something called power factor. And power factor simply means this power that's coming from NEPA, when it comes into my house, how much of it is getting used, is usable power? How much of it is getting sent back because it's reactive power? Reactive power means that it's not usable. So it has to go back to the transformer, heats the transformer up, and eventually it blows up over time. So what I tell people is, this is just one of my secrets, I have a few. What I tell people is, when you're on NEPA, put the stabilizer on, but when you're on inverter power, don't use your stabilizer.
Okay. Thank you for that tip.
Right.
I'm sure I also tell my people in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Okay, but apart from, so you do that. I know you also build drones.
Yeah, so I got into that about 12 years ago. So the way I got into that was, you know, this environment can be tough for a person of color if you're not wired for it. And unfortunately, the kind of environment we grew up in, I don't know if you recall, when you first got here, I used to tell you, don't be polite too much to anybody. So because of my military background and then parenting, I used to just be very polite to people. But a lot of times when you're polite to Igbo people, they'll take advantage of you. They'll just relegate you. So I had a conflict in my mind, like my foundation, my background of being nice to people and being cordial was challenged, because even a white guy once told me that, you know, everyone thinks you have something to hide, you're too nice. You know, so it took me a while to flip. I would say 2012 is when I flipped. I said, you know what, okay, you people want a stern person, then we will do it. And I don't disrespect people, I don't maltreat people, but there are just ways I carry myself now, whereby I'm nice, but not too nice.
Okay.
And that may have
so you told us about it. So you got into the drones through that?
Yeah, so I was depressed, and then I needed a hobby to kind of take my mind off of the things. And so then I got into model airplanes. So when I was a little kid in Ibadan, there was an episode of Famous Five that I watched one day, where the boys were flying an airplane and they used it to drop some eggs. Some girls on the beach. So I used to always marvel, like, wow, if I ever can afford something like that, I will get one. So when I finished my first degree and I got a good paying job, the first thing that I bought was a remote control airplane. Over the years, that morphed into me flying them with cameras on them, and then me wearing goggles to see. They call it first-person view, where you're flying from the perspective of a pilot because you have a camera on the plane. And then drones, like the helicopter type drones, then came along. So I got into that. So that is something that I'm still trying to figure out how to incorporate into the Nigeria market, you know, whether it be military application or security application. There are a lot of options there, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, so tell us, have there been, you know, I know you studied, what do you call it? You were in the arts class in command.
Right.
And then you are now an engineer.
Right.
You know, so of course there was a shift.
Right.
That was a shift. You made up your mind, and as you said, you finally found what you wanted to do, and you enjoyed going to school. Yeah, so that was actually probably a turning point in your life, some kind of turning point in your life,
right.
You know, as in a shift in your life
right.
that brought you this far. But tell us more. What have been instances, situations, you know, some decisions, some steps you've had to take to strengthen you?
Yeah, so not a lot of people know this about me, but I'm very competitive and I'm very driven. Even though I kid around, I'm very playful and childish at times, but I know what I'm doing. So when I was in Form 3, Izuchukwu Afodile brought one, Izu used to travel a lot, so he brought one encyclopedia to class. And inside the encyclopedia, there was a article about how to design AM radios just using tissue paper and wires. And I remember just staring at that over and over in class, like, man, how can you do this? How can you make this where you can hear somebody talking from a radio station? That was one thing. And then when I got my WIAC result back, I was an art student. The only classes I got distinction in were biology, Greek, and economics, social science and science. So I said to myself, I was a very good student in art, and in government I was okay, but I scored like C5s in them. So I thought to myself, this doesn't sound like it for me. And then when I did the placement exam and I scored high on the math test, and eventually learning math properly, under the right conditions, in our time, if you were a late bloomer, they didn't have time for you. Everyone, the teachers didn't have time because most of them didn't like what they were doing, so they didn't have time to nurture anybody. So, but when I came to the US, and I thank God that I had this opportunity to be born here and to have access, I changed, and I just found that I enjoyed it. So God just put some things in place. Being exposed to some technical articles when I was young, WIAC, and then coming to the US and scoring high on the math exam. So I just thought to myself, I should give this a try,
Interesting. So, yeah, I know we've talked more about work, about building this and building that. So what do you do apart from all of this? Are there other things you do?
Well, I lift weights, I run, I mentor kids, I am a father, and I spend a lot of time, even though most of the time I spend with them is based on academia, like helping them with homework. But, sometimes I find myself, taking them on runs with me, and then we go get some ice cream afterwards. Because of the way I was brought up and I grew up, I really don't know how to play with children, but I compensate for that by doing stuff with them, so at least they'll know I tried, and we can break that cycle of not playing with your children. If I do a little bit and they do a little bit more, over time, that cycle will be broken.
Yeah, and I know you play keyboard. Is it keyboard or what do you play?
Well, I play the keyboard. Funny story. So I am not musically inclined at all. Zero gifts when it comes to music. And I know you've questioned me once or twice before. Are you singing or what are you doing? But when I had my first child in 1998, I said, I bought a keyboard, a big one. I said, by the time this child turns 18, if I practice enough, I will be somewhere. The child turned 18 and beyond. I still can't play, but at least I can read music. And I've been giving myself voice training in the last year or so, and I'm actually noticing a difference. I still cannot catch a beat. So my tune and my tone is much better than maybe 2 years ago. But as far as following a clock or a pattern of drums, I'm still a zero. But my goal is that by the time I'm 60, God willing, that I will at least be able to carry a tune.
Really?
It's something I really want, and I'm not going to give up on it until I attain it.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, music is good for the mind, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very good for the mind. And I remember something, going through your Facebook some time back. I know you met with you went to a concert.
Oh, the Boys to Men concert.
Yes. How was that experience for you?
Well, so Boys to Men was part of my teenage and early 20s, and they made a lot of good music. And part of my self-discovery was, just when I was young, like with my teen years to like 23, all I was doing was just dancing up and down. All the things I didn't get to do in command or as a teenager in Nigeria, I did everything up until my like early 20s. So when I got accepted into that engineering school was when all of that kind of kind of went away. In fact, I used to wear earrings in both ears. The next time you see me, you'll still see the holes.
Really?
Yeah, and part of my maturity was like one day I was in the bathroom washing my hands in school, and I just looked up. So I think I was about 26 when this happened. I just looked up and I just said, what is this nonsense? That's how I just took them out, threw them away. In fact, I took my son to that mirror 2 years ago to say this was where I lost my earrings, just to let him know that, I may be his father, but I'm also a human being, a flawed human being, so I lost.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're wearing earrings. I wish, do you have pictures of that?
No, if you look close enough, you can see the hole. It's right there.
No, I mean, that's pictures of you wearing with the earrings on.
Yeah, I have one that I could dig up, yes. But I'm not sure I'll share that with anybody. It's just
interesting.
Coming
so
to America with those guidance.
What would you like to say to someone? Talk to us about life. Teach us something that has helped you. A philosophy, a word of wisdom, an impact of maybe someone, something.
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider myself the most wise person, but I have little snippets of wisdom that I borrow from others. One of my biggest ones is obedience is better than sacrifice. I mean, for a lot of reasons, listening to your peers, listening to your mind, like if you get ready to embark on something, listening to your intuition. And when I was a child, my mother used to always tell me, wherever you go, always say this prayer about, I'll say to Yoruba, that that God, I ask you for your mercy and your favor as I get ready to embark on this. I've always used that, and it's worked out for me pretty good. Do unto others as you would like others to do unto you. And I wouldn't say I'm the nicest person. I wouldn't say I'm the most kind, but I strive to be kind to people, especially those that we can deem a little maybe weaker than us. And of course, the Bible says if a person is staying by you, securely abides by you, don't push them away. I think that's in Ecclesiastes or something like that. So I just try to abide by some of those. I don't always, I am not always successful because I'm a human being and I'm flawed, but I try.
That's very interesting. I know that you are, you are someone that come a long way. You keep moving, and you have been actually been, you're someone I talk to often,
Right.
and daily. I mean, I don't see you talk down. I don't see you complain. Maybe more like that, about anything, even though whatever may be going on. But truly, you have been so you've actually been very strong, or you've been a very inspiring person.
Thank you for
So thank you. I know at the initial stage we used to fight a lot when we first started the Comlag group. I just didn't understand what kind of human being you were. But
let me tell you something. There's a method behind my madness. I can be eccentric, I can be silly sometimes, but if you really, really peel the layers, you will see that there's a method to my madness. You and I used to argue a lot in the early days of BlackBerry because of scriptural things and religious things. And it's just because of life experiences, my dealings with pastors, Nigerian pastors over the years, and things that I saw as a child. And that just kind of pre-biased me against a lot of people that are religious, especially if you wear it on your shoulder. But, in the last few years, I think I've matured quite a bit in that area. We can't all be the same. And Christianity or religion is a personal relationship with God. So if you find yourself misleading people or just being stupid about religion, then that's between you and your God. It's really none of my business. I can observe and pray for you if I'm so disposed.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. So one final word. Anything you'd like to say to us? One final word.
Well, I mean, I would say just we all need to come together and love one another. We all need to reach out to each other and make sure we're all doing well. be kind to people at all times, treat people like you want to be treated, and that's it. For one, I have a tremendous amount of love for all of my peers. 88 sets, 87 sets. You know, I have no qualms with anybody. You know, I'm good.
That's nice. That's nice. Yes, Muyiwa, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for teaching us something. At least we learned a few things from you. I learned how not to force a child. I learned how to be, how to allow yourself grow. I mean, no matter even something that is new, you just may discover yourself into that thing. And that's what you have done with from art class to engineering. I mean, I don't know. I've seen you. I've had to call you to teach my kids physics once or twice, and I wonder who taught you physics, But it's really inspiring. It's really inspiring. And I know you said, 'cause you have to keep studying. You have to keep, you have to keep at it, And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you for being a part of us. And yeah, we also learned also that we should not use stabilizer with our inverter. I think that is so important.
Yes.
Yeah, with the inverter, but you can use it with NEPA, with PHCN now.
Right. If anyone wants to understand the morale behind that, I'll be happy to have that discussion with them.
Yes. I'm sure people can contact you. Anything electrical, anything people need to know, I'm sure you'll be willing to help us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for
our group 88 set secretary, right?
Yes, under the tutelage of our able president, Madam Fumi Suleiman. She runs the night ship, and I'm glad to be on board.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, thank you so much once again. And thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for watching. I believe that you have learned one or two things. And of course, if you have any questions from Muyiwa, you can contact me or contact him. Right. And if you want to, you want him to actually discuss some other things, we can bring him back. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, just one last thing. So for those of you in the diaspora who may be wanting to install solar systems for their parents in Nigeria or for homes you may be building, I would be happy to consult with you to give you guidance on how to go about it.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ma.
All right then. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a good day. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.